And hello, Internet world. So, I was watching Timcast, Tim Pool, and Patriot Nurse, and you know what's going on. It's scary as you know what. You have Trump, who is a long way from a conservative, and I'm going to provide links up to as many things as I can. Marco Rubio, who claims to be a conservative, he's supporting gun control, he's supporting red flag laws. We've seen in Vermont, which is just across the river from us, and Florida, exactly how red flag laws work. You know, the scary thing is people still think there are only two political parties. And people, you know, I mean, how many times can I say it? How many different ways can it be said? You know, you keep voting for the same people, for the same party, from the same leadership, and you expect something different. Isn't that insanity? What is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? So you keep voting for the Republicans and over again, and you keep expecting a different result, and you don't get it. You don't get the different result. You get the same thing. The Republicans have sadly been the ones who have done more for gun control than anybody. Let me see here. That's not what I want. Okay. Under Ronald Reagan, when he was governor of California, there was the Mulford Act. I think the Mulford Act was probably more or less racism. I really think that's why it was passed, because of racism, not anything else. And then when Reagan was president, there was the Firearm Owners Protection Act, FOPA. And now you have Trump, who is putting a ban on bump stocks. Now, I don't know anything about bump stocks. I can only go by what others have said who know far more about guns than I do. Supposedly bump stocks are actually not good for your guns. I don't know, but you know, if these experts say that and they actually know what they're talking about, then they're presumably bad for your gun. Isn't it interesting that all of a sudden, you know, look at Texas. Texas has a Republican governor, and they have a red flag law now. Here in New Hampshire, there is a proposal for a red flag law. I don't remember what they did over in Maine. They did something recently, or proposed something recently. I don't know if it was a red flag law, but it's gun control. You know, this is you know, all of a sudden we have red flag laws, bump stock bans, and this is coming from both parties. Both parties. Now, somebody just commented saying, so you think things would be better under Hillary? I'm like, no, when did I ever say that? I never even implied that. Look, Trump and the Clintons, they're very, the Trump and the Clintons are longtime friends. They are longtime friends. And Trump has made it clear he's no conservative. Okay? People voted for him because the media. And I don't care if you say, well, the media was very critical of him. Yeah, they definitely were critical of him. But that's also a ploy to get people to vote a certain way. There's something called the Fabian Society. In the Fabian Society, one of their goals was to get socialism. Two of the symbols of the Fabian Society. One is a wolf in sheep's clothing. The other is a turtle. The turtle indicates do it slowly. The wolf with a sheepskin is to, you can't see my hand, I'm doing that. It's for them to go in pretending to be something they're not, such as, say, a conservative, even a libertarian, and yet the make changes within conservative and libertarian movements. And then you have Tucker Carlson, and again, I'm going to provide links to as many of these things as I can, who is touting collectivism. And you know, I am from Franco, Spain, and you know what I see going on is really scary. I'm afraid this year something very scary is going to happen. And people say, well, they're going to stand up and fight. Really? When the cops show up at your door at 2 or 3 in the morning, you're not going to be ready. They're going to kick your door in. Are you really going to do anything when there's 20 cops standing outside and there's just you and your family? Really? You know how the media is going to portray it, right? The media is going to portray that you're a freaking nut for defending yourself, for defending your property. Red flag laws violate the Second Amendment. They violate your right to be safe and secure in your own home. And it violates your right to personal property. And it violates, I forget which amendment it is now, the right to due process, because there is no due process. They just come, take everything, and then you go to court and you have to prove that it's okay for you to have a gun. And all these people who continue to support Trump, even though he's proposing gun control. He wants gun control. He is not a conservative. Ronald Reagan, as governor and as president, passed gun control legislation into law. Now you have Trump, a Republican, pushing for gun control. And you're going to keep voting the same way and expect the results to be different. Does that make sense? I'm not voting for, you know, anybody that's going to go out there. You know, no blood's going to be on my hands. Blood can be on your hands, but it ain't going to be on mine. Another thing that's going on at the same time, just the lies, the media lies. Look, you have all these various groups and individuals wanting speech laws, microaggressions and stuff like that they're so bothered by. And you know, when you have Trump talking about fake news, well, you know what's next? He should just come out and say you're lying. He shouldn't say, well, it's fake news. He should say you're lying. And because fake news, that doesn't make any sense. It's not, obviously not news if it's fake, right? It's a lie. Call it a lie. And what's going to happen is that the conservatives, because they're not conservatives, they're going to decide that we need some sort of means to decide what's true and what's not, and what people can hear and what they cannot hear. You have this on various media platforms already. On Tim Pool's video, he was talking about the incident in D.C. where the man with the drum, he walked up to those kids. And this morning I went and looked at a picture or a video, and actually very few of those boys were wearing MAGA hats. Very few. But that guy with the drum, he walked up to that boy. Those kids weren't messing with them. And the media was talking about people preaching the Bible. Those were the black Israelites, or whatever they call themselves. They are a racist, bigoted, homophobic group of nutcases. But the media is willing to defend them. So, what's going to happen is, you have the far left, which really isn't the far left anymore. It's very mainstream. And you have the right, who are going to somehow get together and decide what is allowable speech. Without the Second Amendment, there is no First Amendment. And yes, I fear there's a civil war on the way. Something very bad is on the way. We live in very dangerous times, and again, like, what, you are going to vote for Trump again and vote for more gun control, less freedom? You're going to vote yourself into slavery? Remember, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela and Adolf Hitler in Germany were both voted into office. Their policies were voted in. They were voted in. People chose those things. Another thing I want to mention is people on SSI, SSDI. There's a difference between those two. People on VA disability, any sort of disability, welfare, food stamps. Well, not necessarily food stamps, because if you work and you get food stamps, they may not go after you, but the unproductive people, as they would say. And there is a an outcry out there about the unproductive people, including people on the right. And people like myself, we're going to be targeted because we're unproductive. We're not wanted or needed in society, right? And how many of you would today say, well, no, we wouldn't have you put in prison or killed or anything? I bet 5 years from now you'll say something different. How many people in Germany, how many people in Germany actually fought against Hitler? It was an extreme minority. Extreme minority. And the vast majority of those were caught and killed. Now, Dr. Viktor Frankl, he talked about how he and his friends would sit around at the coffee houses and have these deep conversations, and how they would talk of high morals and things like this. My wife in the other room, and talk about stuff like that, and how they wouldn't put up with totalitarianism. And then when it came, nobody fought against it. They just accepted it. Some of them became a part of it. Some of them wound up becoming a part of it and being wholeheartedly behind it. We live in very scary times, people. Again, you want to vote for somebody that wants to take your guns away, and you think it's going to be better the second time around. It's only going to get that much worse the second time around. Remember, it's the Republicans doing this. But then there's no difference between the two parties anymore. Not that I see. They may say things, but their actions speak louder than their words. I mean, look at the things that the GOP claims. They claim to be pro-life, but when they've had a majority in both houses and the White House, they haven't ended abortion. They haven't done anything about it. You know, cutting or reducing funding for Planned Parenthood is that's topical. It's not anything serious. They're not doing anything to end abortion. They claim to be pro 2A, yet they're proposing gun control. They're proposing gun control. And, you know, if you keep voting the way that you're voting, you're going to get the same thing over and over again. That's all you're going to get. You're not getting anything different. I don't see how you could honestly think that you're going to get something different if you do the same thing over again. You got what you got, and I didn't look this link up this morning. I looked it up the other day. Red flag laws were proposed by Trump in during his campaign. And people have told me that's not true, but then I provided a link to it, and they just ignored it. Or they didn't even bother reading it. Which is the same thing, I guess. But I'll see if I can go and find that article again. You know, most people get their information online today, and what happens, you know, look at the way media companies censor information. Like Google, I don't use Google, but look how they censor it. When you try to look something up on Google, it's always something pro-leftist. So, now we're in dangerous times. And when they come for your guns, what are you going to do? You going to go crying to Trump, the one who's taking them from you? So you're going to vote for Trump a second time and expect him to do something different than what he's already done. That makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. There are more than 2 political parties in this country. I vote for individuals regardless of what party they're a member of. Most of the people I vote for are either Republicans or Libertarians. Not that they are Republicans or Libertarians. They run as members of the Republican or Libertarian parties. And here's one unique thing here in New Hampshire. Still getting over the flu. Here's one unique thing here in New Hampshire. If the Democrats run, if the Republicans run somebody and the Libertarian Party runs somebody, and neither one of those are Liberty candidates, we will sometimes wind up with a Liberty candidate running as a Democrat, not running as a Democrat, but on the Democratic ticket, if that position is open. And lots of times here in New Hampshire there's an open position on more than one office. I'll tell you something about, I'm not going to say the name of my town, but people elected a conservative, a man who claimed to be a conservative. What did he do? He supported higher taxes. People are losing their houses here. People are losing their land, and I don't know if you know anything about New England, but in some cases people have owned these houses for 100, 200, 300 years. I mean, the families have. There's actually a song from the late 60s, early 70s, a trucking song, and the song is The person that inspired the song was from my town, and you know, his family still lives here, and there are families that have lived here for hundreds of years. On one side of my family, down in Virginia, they've lived here for several hundred years. There's actually a street named for the family. There are actually people still in that area. There are actually still family members in that area. The church that my family helped found, that was actually at one point referred to by a name that was a reference to a family member, it still exists. They actually had to start a second church because it grew too big, and they didn't want it to be one of those mega churches, so they opened a second church, but with a different name, a different minister. It's a mainline denomination, a very traditional sort of southern denomination. But you know, it's crazy, man. You keep voting the same way over and over again, and you expect different results. That's insanity. That's insanity, man. So when they come for your guns, don't just blame the Democrats. Blame the Republicans too, because they're just as responsible, if not more so. Trump wants gun control. He said so. When they come to take you away, your blood's not on my hands, because I didn't vote for the people you're voting for. I hope you have a good day.